Hi, this is Andrea Kane, and I'm the instructor for HSC 1114, your medical terminology class that you are in, hopefully, if you're watching this video. We are studying the language of medicine, 12th edition by Davie Ellen Chapner, and this lecture is on chapter 3 in your book, which would be week 2 in your syllabus. So let's talk about suffixes. We're going to look at new suffixes and review those that have been in chapters 1 and 2. And we'll talk about word analysis and how we build understand terms, some functions of the different types of blood cells in the body. So let's get going. All right, combining forms. Remember our equation. It is a combining root plus a combining vowel equals a combining form. So you've got that root, you've got the combining vowel, and it's going to equal a combining form. You have abdomino, acro, acuo, or acuo, adeno, adipo, amnio, angio, arterio, arthro, and axillo. Bio, blepharo, broncho, carcino, cardio, chemo, chondro, chrono, colo, cysto. Encephalo, erythro, hemo, hepato, hydro, inguino, ischo, laparo, laryngo, leuco, lympho, mammo, masto. Notice that there's two terms there for breast, so be sure you study both of those. Morpho, muco, myo, myelo. Okay, myo and myelo, two very different things, but they're spelled similarly, so you're going to want to watch out for these. Necro, nephro, neuro, neutro. Look at how close neuro and neutro are. They mean totally different things again, but they're spelled awfully similarly, so you're going to want to watch out for that. Nucleo, ophthalmo, and of course the OPHTH there is a tricky one, so practice spelling that one. Osteo, oto, patho, peritoneo, phago, phlebo, plazo. Pleuro, pneumono, pulmono. Now notice we have two for lungs right next to each other, and they're different, pneumo versus pulmo, but they both mean lungs, so watch out for that. And remember we had pleural cavity and those types of things, so you've got to watch out with them when it happens to be lung, because there are plural of these combining forms for lungs. Radio, recto, reno, rhino, sarco, spleno, staphylo, strepto, thoraxo, you'll say it's thoraco, thrombo, tonsillo, tracheo, veno. And now we're going to get to some suffixes. Algia, seal, centesis, caucus, or cocci. Notice the difference between the singular and plural here. Sight, denia, ectomy, emia, genesis, gram. Graph, graphy. Make sure that you know the difference between gram, graph, and graphy. Sometimes that can get a little bit sticky if you're not careful. Itis, logi, lysis, malacia, megaly, oma, opsiosis, pathy, penia, phobia, plasia, plasty. Ptosis. When you have P in front of a T, you don't pronounce the P, you just pronounce the T, so this is ptosis. Rhea, watch out for that RRH. Anything that has Rhea in it is going to be RRHEA. Sclerosis, that's SCL, no H in there, SCL. Scope and scopy, make sure you know the difference between scope and scopy. Stasis, stomy, therapy, Tomy, and trophy. Now I want to bring your attention to stomy versus tomy. The only difference is an S, but the meanings are very different. Stomy has to do with stoma, which is an opening that forms a mouth. Tomy is to cut into. It's to make that incision into. It's just to cut it open. It's not to excise it and take it out. It's just to cut open. So, quick quiz. Which term means fear of heights? Well, let's talk through this. Which suffix means fear of? It is not megaly. Okay, so you can cross out A. It's definitely not A. Now you've got phobia, phobia, phobia for B, C, and D. So which is it? Heights. Hydro means water. So B is fear of water. All right. And I'm going to leave the other two up to you to study up on and figure out. Some more suffixes. ER, IA, ist, ol, ul. Notice the difference between ol and ul. You need to make sure you pronounce them differently, even though they mean the same thing. One of those very confusing tricks in medical terminology. And both mean structure and tissue. Us and Y. AC, IAC, AL, AR, AR, EAL, and genic. They all mean pertaining to. So when you start to study for those, make sure that you understand that those all are suffixes that mean pertaining to. Why they chose to need more than one, I don't know. But there you have it. Oh, and you got ick and ickle also, as well as os, us, and tick. It's not fun sometimes when they repeat like this. So let's take a look at building some terms. You have arthritis. That's the first one here. I'm going to move my mouse. Hopefully you can see this on your screen. Arthritis. Itis is inflammation. Arthur is joint. So this is inflammation of the joint. Blepharoptosis. Blepharoptosis. Ptosis is drooping. Blepharo is eyelid. So you have drooping of the eyelid. The next one is ischemia. Ischemia. Make sure you practice pronouncing that one. Ischemia. Emia is loss. And isch is normal blood flow. Next one is osteogenic. Genic means produced or producing. And osteo is bone. So this is something that is produced by the bone, or it comes from the bone. It's generated in the bone. Staphylococci. These are berry-shaped bacteria that grow in clusters. Okay? The berry-shaped bacteria are the staphylo, and then you've got the cocci, the clusters, I believe. Or do I have that backwards? Sorry. It's Friday morning. All right. This is just a look at a hernia. A hernia is whenever an organ or the muscle wall of an organ pushes through the cavity that normally contains it. You might hear of inguinal hernias, umbilical hernias. This one happens to be cystoceles and rectoceles. But what's happening is it's pushing through that muscular wall in a way that it shouldn't be, and it could cause a constriction. So a rectocele is what? We just covered that. It should be B. All right? Streptococcus and Staphylococcus. Those are bacteria that grow in chains or clusters. And there's more about staph and strep in your book. Recommend looking at it there. All right, so blood cells. You have erythrocytes, leukocytes, and thrombocytes, or also known as platelets. Your erythrocytes are red blood cells. So erythro is red. Leuco is white. Those are your white blood cells. And then your thrombocytes are the ones that clot. Red blood cells are made in the bone marrow. They carry oxygen from the lungs to all parts of the body, to all those cells. The hemoglobin in red blood cells is a blood protein. And there's more about this in your book, so I would direct you there to really study up on it. This is sort of a quick review. Leukocytes are those white blood cells. There are 5 different kinds. They are divided into 2 categories, granulocytes and mononuclear leukocytes. And granulocytes, there are 3 types of those: eosinophils, basophils, and neutrophils. Mononuclear cells, there's 2 types, lymphocytes and monocytes. And this is a really helpful visual to break it all down. So white blood cells are either granulocytes or mononuclears. If they're a granular site, they're either an eosinophil, a basophil, or a neutrophil. If they're a mononuclear, they're either a lymphocyte or a monocyte. So hopefully that clarifies it. But this is a really good visual to take a look at to learn this information. Thrombocytes, those are your clotting cells known as platelets. They are tiny fragments of blood cells that are formed in the bone marrow, and they are necessary for blood clotting. And this is a good visual about the different cells, sort of what their shapes are, shape, size, and that type of thing. You can see that thrombocytes are itty-bitty. I mean, not that blood cells aren't itty-bitty to begin with, but they're the smallest of the types of cells. So which type of blood cells are necessary for clotting? I think you can get this. We just studied it. Closer look, acromegaly. This is an endocrine disorder. It occurs when the pituitary gland produces too much of the growth hormone after someone has gone through puberty. They just keep growing and growing and growing. Sometimes it's because of a benign tumor of the pituitary gland. The person is of normal height, but their bones and soft tissue in the hands, feet, and face grow abnormally. Abraham Lincoln is a good example of someone who is believed to have the features of acromegaly. Laparoscopy. This is a type of minimally invasive surgery. It's a visual examination of the abdominal cavity using a laparoscope, which is a lighted telescopic instrument. They make little tiny incisions in the abdomen near the navel often, and then they put the scope in, they inflate it up with gas, and they're able to look around and visualize what's going on. And sometimes you'll hear of like a laparoscopic appendectomy or a laparoscopic gallbladder removal. And that's where they've gone in, or cholecystectomy is the proper medical term, a laparoscopic cholecystectomy for a gallbladder removal. And you will see that they use that approach, the laparoscopic approach, to do the procedure. And that's how they're using their instruments to get it done. Adenoids. Did you know you have adenoids? I happen to still have mine too. I still have my tonsils and my adenoids. They are small masses of lymphatic tissue located in the part of your pharynx near your nose and nasal passages. And they are not endocrine or exocrine glands, but they resemble them. And sometimes when a child or an adult has their tonsils removed, they go ahead and remove the adenoids as well. A lot of times they'll get enlarged and inflamed, and they block the airway. So that is it for chapter 3. We flew right through that. I'm going to finish this up here in just a second and move on to chapter 4. I hope you're doing well and enjoying medical terminology, and I'll be back soon. Thanks.